Every day, SDPB connects South Dakotans with stories that inform, inspire, and bring us together. SDPB, good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB is your home for fact-based journalism, connecting South Dakotans with news they can trust and stories that matter. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. From children's programs to in-depth documentaries, SDPB sparks curiosity and lifelong learning in every South Dakotan. SDPB, good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB brings South Dakotans together, telling the stories that unite small towns, big ideas, and the people who make our state shine. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. SDPB shares the voices and experiences of South Dakotans, preserving our stories, our culture, and our sense of place. SDPB, good, useful, and full of wonder. As South Dakota's public media network, SDPB serves everyone with transparency, integrity, and commitment to open access. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. SDPB helps shape South Dakota's future by educating, informing, and inspiring the next generation of thinkers, leaders, and creators. SDPB. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB serves South Dakota through an interconnected communication system that is on 24/7, 365. The first place for Amber Alerts, public safety announcements, and EAS messages. SDPB keeps public servants and citizens informed. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. SDPB brings you closer to your government. With gavel to gavel coverage of the South Dakota legislature and in depth reporting from Pierre. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. From early learners to lifelong students, SDPB inspires curiosity through trusted educational programs and resources for every stage of life. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. When South Dakotans need reliable information, SDPB is there providing updates and coverage that keep our communities safe and connected. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. SDPB celebrates South Dakota's student athletes with live coverage of SDHSAA state championships, sharing the excitement of hometown heroes. SDPB. Good, useful, and full of wonder. From choir to debate to theater, SDPB shines a spotlight on South Dakota's talented students through SDHSAA All-State Fine Arts programming. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. Every day, SDPB connects South Dakotans with stories that inform, inspire, and bring us together. SDPB, good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB is your home for fact-based journalism, connecting South Dakotans with news they can trust and stories that matter. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. From children's programs to in-depth documentaries, SDPB sparks curiosity and lifelong learning in every South Dakotan. SDPB. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB brings South Dakotans together, telling the stories that unite small towns, big ideas, and the people who make our state shine. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. SDPB shares the voices and experiences of South Dakotans, preserving our stories, our culture, and our sense of place. SDPB, good, useful, and full of wonder. As South Dakota's public media network, SDPB serves everyone with transparency, integrity, and commitment to open access. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. SDPB helps shape South Dakota's future by educating, informing, and inspiring the next generation of thinkers, leaders, and creators. SDPB. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB serves South Dakota through an interconnected communication system that is on 24/7, 365. The first place for Amber Alerts, public safety announcements, and EAS messages. SDPB keeps public servants and citizens informed. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. SDPB brings you closer to your government. With gavel-to-gavel coverage of the South Dakota legislature and in-depth reporting from Pierre. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. From early learners to lifelong students, SDPB inspires curiosity through trusted educational programs and resources for every stage of life. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. When South Dakotans need reliable information, SDPB is there providing updates and coverage that keep our communities safe and connected. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. SDPB celebrates South Dakota's student athletes with live coverage of SDHSAA state championships, sharing the excitement of hometown heroes. SDPB, good, useful, and full of wonder. From choir to debate to theater, SDPB shines a spotlight on South Dakota's talented students through SDHSAA All-State Fine Arts Programming. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. Every day, SDPB connects South Dakotans with stories that inform, inspire, and bring us together. SDPB, good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB is your home for fact-based journalism, connecting South Dakotans with news they can trust and stories that matter. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. From children's programs to in depth documentaries, SDPB sparks curiosity and lifelong learning in every South Dakotan. SDPB. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB brings South Dakotans together, telling the stories that unite small towns, big ideas, and the people who make our state shine. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. SDPB shares the voices and experiences of South Dakotans, preserving our stories, our culture, and our sense of place. SDPB, good, useful, and full of wonder.
Good morning. Welcome to the Joint Committee on Appropriations. I'm Representative Mike Derby, the lead co-chair, along with my good Senator Otten. As we do every morning, we start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Senator Otten, will you please lead us? Thank you, Senator. Just want to welcome all of our internet listeners and those of you watching on South Dakota Public Broadcasting, and remind everybody to please make sure your cell phones are off. Lobbyists must be wearing badges for the organization they're representing. Testifiers must sign the guest register, and if you have any questions, the pages will be glad to help you. All testimony and questions will run through the chair. This time I'd like to ask Secretary to call the roll.
Senators and Representatives, Ms. Kimmons. Here. Auk. Here. Casson. Here. Moore. Here. Billhauer. Here. Carly. Here. Boyda. Here. Jorgensen. Here. Howard. Here. Foster. Here. Sharda. Here. Mucky. Here. Zickman. Here. Colbeck. Norstrup. Here. Lapke. Here. Otten. Here. Derby.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Okay, fantastic. We have no minutes to approve at this time, and we will introduce the pages. Could we please, Representative Colbeck is here. Would the pages please come up front? Use the microphone up here. Please introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from and future plans and your favorite hobby. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Selena Valeris. I am from Huron Pierre, T.F. Riggs High School. I am also a junior. My hobbies are Civil Air Patrol and shooting sports, and that takes up most of my time.
Oh, wait. Civil Air Patrol, are you getting your license? Have you been up in the air yet or not?
I have been able to do O-rides, but I have not gotten, my solo, I have not gone to any NCSAs yet.
No, okay. Is it, I have this question, is it easier to take off or land?
I'm not particularly sure.
Oh, okay. Okay. Did you have any? Yeah, Representative Jorgensen.
Thank you. You said you're involved in shooting sports. What type of shooting are you doing?
I do air rifle and air pistol and BB gun, but I've aged out of BB guns, so I stick to those as well as archery.
Nice. Thank you.
Next, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Carly Christ, and I'm a senior at Beersford High School. I'm planning to go to college to double major in ag business and human resources. And what I do in my pastime, I am very active in FFA and 4-H, and I show goats.
Why human resources with ag? What's your thought process?
I come from an ag background, so I don't really want to give up like the agriculture side. And human resources is a job where you can work in a lot of places. And I'm a people person, and I really enjoy leadership. So I think that that's a good role that could fit in a lot of places, no matter where my life takes me.
Gosh, that's fantastic. Next.
My name is Anders Whiff. I'm a senior from Highmore. I plan to attend South Dakota School of Mines to become a mechanical engineer. One of my hobbies is basketball.
Okay. What position do you play?
Center.
Center. I was wondering if you were a point guard or not. Next.
I'm Gabriella Wordle. I'm a senior at Miller High School, and I like to do sports and 4-H.
Which sports?
I'm in cross country, wrestling, dance, and track.
Okay. Well, let's take a minute here, folks. We've got a real long and stressful day here, but here's the future of South Dakota right here. Thank you. Any other introductions, personal privileges, or announcements? Okay. Yes, Senator Otten.
Well, since we're wrapping this thing up and it's written that laughter is a good medicine, so in that vein, did you hear that the authorities found all the counterfeited German marks? They were question marks.
Is that from that dad joke book?
It is.
Okay, I'm going to lay out today, and as we said yesterday, this process gets a little herky-jerky. We'll be huddling, we'll be taking recess, we'll be doing what we need to do, we'll be moving things around the agenda, we'll be coming back after session. Those of you that have been around long enough know that is how we're going to operate, so I'm not going to apologize for it. The first thing out of the gate, what we've done is we've moved the Department of Agricultural and Natural Resources to this afternoon. We did have a special request to have the Department of Education here at the beginning, and then their budget setting will be this afternoon at the end. So we're simply asking questions at this point in time. We won't be adopting any budgets or motion sheets for the Department of Ed. Then we're going to move through to the Department of Labor and Regulation, Corrections, UJS, Health, Human Services, Revenue, Tech Ed. We lumped those all together because now we have our inflation number of 1.4%, and we've locked that in to the budgets. And so when we do budget setting, 1.4% is in those, and we felt that these were the budgets that we could move forward to in a fairly quick manner. This afternoon we'll be closing out with the Bureau of Finance and Management. School and Public Lands will bring back for one minor item, Attorney General, Department of Social Services, and Department of Education. And we get through that, we will have a general appropriations bill on the 35th legislative day. That's the goal, okay? Are there any questions from the committee before we start? Any questions from the committee? Okay, we're going to start with the Department of Education. Mr. Secretary, please join us and then introduce your team, and we'll kind of run down some questions. And really welcome, Mr. Secretary. Please introduce yourself.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Joe Graves, Secretary of Education. Today I have with me from our Finance and Management Division, Cody Stozer, and from our CANS Division, which is Child and Adult Nutrition Services, Alan Harstead, and they're both here to answer your questions this morning.
Okay, thank you. And I think we'll have Representative Mucky lead it out. And almost all the questions will be around one subject that TFAP. And we love acronyms. Could you please tell everybody what TFAP stands for?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. TFAP stands for the Emergency Food Assistance Program. I believe we're getting some information distributed. Thank you. Mr. Chair, if I may, I can.
Yes, lead us out.
Thanks, gentlemen, this morning. Just want to maybe start out with a basic question. Can you explain to us how the TFAP program operates within the Department of Education?
Absolutely. Mr. Chair, Alan Harstead, South Dakota Department of Education, Director for the Division of Child and Adult Nutrition Services. Yes, so TFAP, we do love acronyms, is a it's a federal program. We get a federal award, and we call it an entitlement award, and so those are essentially a dollar amount that is associated with USDA foods. So the USDA makes available USDA foods for use within the program. So it's not like real dollars, it's just an entitlement number. And so then we have some state level administrative funds for administering the program. We have, it's for, people that meet certain income requirements. And the formula for the amount of our entitlement is established in regulation based on unemployment rate, and then also on the amount of households in poverty. I'm sure you've seen the formula for that. But and then there's also separate to the entitlement amount, but used more or less by the same formula. We get some administrative dollars that come into the state, and so we use those at the state level for staffing, travel, some for reviews. We establish ERAs, we call them. They are basically our subrecipients. In previous years, the Department of Education has had multiple ERAs. Starting this program year, October 1st, 2025. Bearing in mind there was a lapse in federal appropriations at that time, but we're moving forward with only one ERA, and that is Feeding South Dakota, and then they have subrecipient ERAs. So we have requirements for monitoring those subrecipient ERAs and making sure that the program is being implemented. We also do the food ordering. So roughly in January is when the state agency sends out our TFAP survey. And then that basically establishes what our baseline TFAP order is for the year. Now, they come at various times. It all depends on the USDA shipping schedule. But essentially, that establishes our order for the calendar year. And then as they come in, they go into Feeding South Dakota's warehouse, and then they work on distributing them out to the subrecipient, their subrecipients. And then there's also, not to get on the weeds, but there's also a handful of bonus orders throughout the year that's above and beyond our entitlement. So there may be additional bonus orders that come through. Our staff work with Feeding South Dakota and figure out if they, if that's useful for them, if that's something that they have the space for, et cetera. But so there's kind of this baseline and then additional as well. But the entitlement and then the admin are kind of separate, tracked separately and everything. But.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Follow up. Appreciate you giving the high level. Drilling down a little bit more, so I'll start with the entitlements, I guess. How much, knowing that that's primarily, I'm assuming, food in this case, how much entitlements do we have as contracted with the state of South Dakota?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I do have some numbers here. So, yeah, the entitlement is essentially, yes, a grant award, that we get from the federal government, and that dollar amount is again used to purchase. So if we, for example, order a significant amount of beef or other high dollar, then that impacts the amount of boxes we'll get. But it ranges, obviously based on the federal appropriation, and also there is some carryover with this. So as we move through the years, it ranges, I would say, between about 600,000 up to about 1.4 million is kind of what that range is. And so, again, the numbers include carryover. It includes some adjustments that we make because we can do some food to admin conversions, and so those dollar amounts are final numbers, but that's why there's a little bit more ebb and flow with that, so.
Understood. Follow up. Making sure I understand too, so based on that entitlement, we talked about surveying and making sure that we have appropriate numbers for the formula. Based on that, the numbers that we're seeing on average, how many folks are we actually feeding with that?
Mr. Chair? Great question. I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. Feeding South Dakota would have a much more probably accurate on what they do with their subrecipient agencies. We have done some in past years with subrecipients, so I could pull some of the stuff that we have done in the past, but I don't have that in front of me.
Okay. And then another follow-up. Switching gears, I guess, a little bit to the administrative side. So have the table or graph in front of us. I'm assuming, is this the administrative cost that we're talking about?
Correct.
Okay.
That graph does not, thank you, take into consideration any entitlement. Mr. Chair, sorry.
Got it. So follow-up then, basically looking at this, just making sure I understand. So as we're looking at this with ongoing funding from the federal government, this is primarily just to administer the program then, just to clarify.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And those are, dollars that were spent, yes, just to administer the program, some by the state, some by Feeding South Dakota and subrecipient agencies.
Understood. And then the last follow-up, and then I can open up. The last thing I just want to make sure I understand. So you're moving to a singular ERA in this case. Tell me more about how that relationship works in the sense that obviously you have entitlements, you have administrative costs. How does that eventually get passed through to the subrecipient in this case, or the ERA?
Mr. Chair. So just as a clarification, the how does the administrative dollars end up passing through to
Yep.
so yeah, we have our baseline admin allocation, and then we budget for the minimal amount that we need at the state level to have, like I said, staff member, her travel for reviews, and then some equipment purchase and things like that, and then so then we know that at the end of the year we won't use our full baseline number, and then at some point throughout the year we do the food to admin conversion, and so a portion of that entitlement can be then converted to actual dollars for administrative purposes. We typically do that just for the sake of the entitlement dollars are, again, they're limited in terms of like what you can purchase from the USDA, and so sometimes if schedules don't line up, if the commodities aren't exactly what is needed, I guess. So there are some of those dollars left over. So we do try to convert those food to admin dollars. And so then at the end of each year, we do collect invoices from ERAs. And at the end of each year, we essentially pay out as much as we can based on what is left over after we meet our state level obligation. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Thank you. Additional questions, Representative Jorgensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, so your baseline allocation, what percentage is that of the dollars that you get for administration?
Mr. Chair, if you're looking at the graph, are you speaking specifically to the blue bars? That would be our baseline ongoing.
I'm trying to make sure, okay, so I see the blue bar. So are you telling me as I'm looking at this, so let's just take 2025, that you had 315,000 plus in grant money for administration? Am I reading this correctly?
That is correct. That includes our baseline and then also the food to admin conversion. So that does include both of those.
Okay, so that's all that we received from USDA in 2025?
Mr. Chair, I apologize.
Not quite, because we got commodities as well, correct?
Mr. Chair, so.
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
The, So the admin dollars that come in are a separate allocation.
Right.
The commodities are not included in this at all, but yes, there are, like in 2025 specifically, in addition to those admin dollars, in program year 25, which just for fiscal year purposes, let me think about that, would be October 24, 25. So we would have received an entitlement of $871,000 for the purchase of food that year.
Mr. Chair, sorry. So I'm just trying to be clear. So for that year, you got 875,000 in addition to the 315,000.
So the 800,000 is not actual dollars.
Right.
That's yes, but we had the ability to purchase USDA foods up to our entitlement, and we do that through their online ordering system. So it's just an entitlement number. USDA does their conversion to figure out, okay, these are the commodities we have available. Okay. This is approximately what each one is worth, and it's kind of our process for ordering. But those were not real dollars that came into the state at all.
Gotcha. One more question, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Okay, so I understand that the commodities, you got that money to pay for the commodities, and then you have these administrative dollars. Mm-hmm. So if I did this correctly, you got about $315,000 for administrative, and it looks like you paid out almost $248,000 to Feeding South Dakota, which means, if I'm doing this correctly, that the state DOE kept in 2025 $67,000 and change. Now, am I looking at this correctly based on the information that you've given me? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, so did the grant years line up? The short answer, I think, is yes. 2025, do we have that? Sorry.
Mr. Chair, Cody Stolzer, Director of Finance Management for the Department of Education. So we do hold back for salaries out of this amount, this allotment here. So some of that, goes for, like Director Harstead said, is for reviews and going to on-site reviews and make sure those are done. So that's mainly their job to do. Their job description for the TFAP program is for that. So we do hold back administrative funds out of this amount for the salary position, and it's a one-to-one match from the state side to the federal side. So whatever we use, we have to match that to be able to get the award.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So all I was trying to do is, I don't think 67,000 is unreasonable. I'm just trying to make sure that I am reading the information that you gave me correctly. That's all I'm trying to do right now, because if I look at 2023 to 2024, it shows 362,000 in administrative, but then it shows a Feeding South Dakota reimbursement of 383,000. So I'm confused. You didn't keep anything back in 23, 24, or am I reading this Feeding South Dakota reimbursement incorrectly?
Mr. Chair?
Thank you.
That could happen because of the carryover from previous COVID dollars and whatnot that were pumped into the system. So if you look at 22, we had a big influx of money in the TFAP program because of the COVID dollars.
Representative Casson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I apologize. I don't live this every day, so I'm uber confused here. And I appreciate the questions from down here. We're the Appropriations Committee, and we're talking about today is this TFAP program. In very simple terms, not getting into the weeds of what your job is, and appreciate, what are you contractually obligated to do?
Mr. Chair, so we are contractually obligated, I would say, from in our agreement with USDA is to essentially ensure that the USDA commodities that come through that are sort of earmarked TFAP, they end up in food banks across the state and are distributed to eligible individuals.
Perfect. Thank you. Follow up?
That's correct.
Okay, so how much time does that take you?
Mr. Chair, I don't have a specific amount of hours, but approximately it's about probably not one full-time staff, because our staff that codes to TFAP does also assist with some of our other programs. I would say we do have one staff member that leads on TFAP. She has to do reviews for the subrecipient agencies. I don't.
So, Mr. Chair, Cody Stoser, we do, there's dedicated FTE for this to run the program. So now, again, Director Hartstead said it could be split against two people helping out with the program, but if, those FTE codes of these funds when we're working on that program. So it could be two people dedicated to doing something like this, or three, or one. If they need assistance in performing the duties of the grant from USDA.
So how much does that cost?
Mr. Chair, so in personal services, it was $135,000 total, because it's, again, 1-to-1 match when we're matching the federal dollars. So in 2025 here, general funds is $41,000. We use $41,000 in federal. So a 1-to-1 match so far in those areas. So it is pretty much a full FTE that's working on it, but spread across multiple people.
So just to clarify, we are using general funds on this program?
Mr. Chair, correct. Yes, it's a 1-to-1 match for the program.
Okay, that's new information for me.
One follow-up?
Follow-up.
Yeah, sorry, Senator. So,
Mr. Chair, that's for administrative costs, not for the cost of the entitlement of the food. So just the administrative portion of this grant, that's what we have to 1-to-1 match.
Okay, we've got
Just one clarification.
Casson, Howard, Muckey, Auk.
sorry, Mr. Chair.
Nope.
Just one clarification. You said 41,000, 41,000. That's 82,000, and then you said 135,000. So,
That's all administrative costs. So like space rentals and stuff of, not just the salaries, but it's contractual services, travel, stuff like that all together. It's just not salaries and benefits. We have more than just those as administrative costs.
Senator Howard, then
Thank you, Mr.
Representative
Chair.
Markey.
Okay, so I too just want to clarify and make sure I'm understanding this. So if I look at this right, we are essentially right now putting in roughly 67,000 in general funds to match 67,000 in federal funds for administrative costs, and that's it. Follow up. So I'm sure you guys have seen the motion sheets that are out there, 741,000. That would be something completely new that we have never done before, is giving general funds to actually, this would go beyond administrative costs, correct? This would be directly supplementing the federal program in benefits.
Mr. Chair, correct. Yeah,
Okay.
this would go to directly supplement that and towards feeding South Dakota.
Which, Mr. Chair, we have not done as a state before.
We have not paid this out
Right.
to any agency before.
Representative Muckey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our concern on the motion sheets was trying to understand, appreciate you walking us through some of this administrative costs, is primarily on the entitlements. So as far as the entitlements that are delivered out through, in this case, the ERA, can you explain a little bit more? Obviously, it's hard to nail down a specific dollar figure in this case, year to year, but can you tell us more about how that plays out as far as your subrecipients, how that gets out to them?
Mr. Chair. So yeah, I do, and I should specify, I do have our entitlements over the years. I can read the numbers. They do vary, and it seemed tedious, but we do have those available. And so yes, so the federal award for administration is enough for our with the general fund match, and I should specify, if I might, the match is only what we spend in admin at the state level. So any admin that we pass through to the ERAs is not matched. So just as a point of clarification, but So we have, you know, an administrative cost for us, and again, that would be to ensure that the program is being implemented with fidelity, making sure that you know, the ERAs are, well, back when we had multiple ERAs, but make sure that they are implementing the program that they need to. USDA typically puts a lot of very granular requirements on us to keep up with the ERAs. So that with the state match is enough for us at the state level to administer the program.
Can I ask what an ERA is? I'm sorry, I'm really confused.
It's essentially a subrecipient, Mr. Chair. I should know that off the top of my head, and I apologize, I don't. It's in the regulations in the TFAP regs. It specifies that a subrecipient shall be called an ERA, and I can pull that, but it's subrecipient and ERA in this case would be synonymous. So I apologize for not knowing that acronym off the top of my head.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, Representative Auk.
And would an ERA be Feeding South Dakota?
Correct.
Yep. Senator Carly.
ERA is Eligible Recipient Agency?
Yep. Yes, no?
Okay, I think it's eligible recipient agency.
We'll
We use, subrecipient, ERA, and back when we had multiple ERAs, it was, you know, we did contracts directly with some local food banks, so we did have multiple ERAs at that time. So we do consider Feeding South Dakota, ERA, subrecipient, all as synonymous in this case. So I apologize for that confusion.
Additional questions?
I don't feel like I fully answered Mucky's question.
Yes, Senator Voida.
I just gotta ask this one more time. Okay, so we just said 135,000 total in administrative costs, rental space, whatever it is, and then it just take the Feeding South Dakota reimbursement for 24-25, 247,000 plus your commodities, right?
Mr. Chair, yes, that'd be correct. We reimburse Feeding South Dakota for administrative costs out of that $315,000. We take off our part of the dollars for our administrative burden for the program. The allotment, we don't get the entitlement, I'll call it, the food entitlement. We don't see that. We just, Feeding South Dakota puts in orders for that. We don't get those dollars. They get those directly, and they get that food directly from the ordering or whatever they do for that.
Follow up. So is that 247,000 that Feeding South Dakota gets most of that their administrative costs then to distribute that food, or do they use some of that to buy food? Where does that money go?
Mr. Chair, we get invoices from Feeding South Dakota, and their costs for administration are based on it's a cost per pound for handling, and then a cost per pound of like administration. And so that handling and administration is all lumped into the invoices that they get that we get from them. And then once again, we make sure that we fulfill our obligations at the state level. The rest of our dollars that are earmarked for administration flow through for the ERA, in this case, Feeding South Dakota. That's your question.
So just to clarify, that 247,000 then is their administration.
Mr. Chair, I would say yes.
Mr. Chair, I'll add to that. That's what we can provide them for administration. We don't have any more funds for that. The federal government gives us this amount to provide for administration. Now, if they go above and beyond it, if their per pound amount is above and beyond this, we can't reimburse that. We don't have the authority to reimburse that. We can only deal with the 300,000 that we have available for administration costs.
Representative Mucky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Without belaboring the point, I know we talked about in this case, you talked about two costs. You talked about the distribution costs, the cost per pound, and then administration. We're talking about administration. Can you explain what that, I mean, it sounds maybe simpler than it is in simple terms, but what do we mean by administration in this case? Are we talking about getting the food out, or tell us more about that?
Mr. Chair, I don't know. I mean, I would assume that I haven't dug into the specifics of what exactly that accounts for with Feeding South Dakota. I know that, they have warehouse staff that, move the food around and handle the food, and then it comes in massive pallets, and then they have to get that sort of organized and figured out exactly which food banks that's going to go to and how that's going to be distributed. And so that would be their side of the administration is a lot of the physical handling of the commodities and the staff and warehouse time that goes into that.
Representative Auk.
Yes, okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just so I can totally and completely understand this, the state of South Dakota is getting 315,000, I'm just looking at 2025 numbers because it seems like it's the real number from after COVID, correct? Okay. 315,000. Of that 315,000, approximately 67,000 you are withholding for your administration. And then we are sending $247,997.63 to Feeding South Dakota for their administration. And none of this money is spent on food. Am I correct?
Mr. Chair, that is correct. In the past, we did have to pay a couple companies for storage and shipping or trucking costs. Now, I think Feeding South Dakota has taken that over. So since they're taking that over, the more of the dollars would go to them out of this 315, since they're taking over that shipping and storage costs instead of the other two companies that used to do it for us. So in the past, there were other costs that didn't go to Feeding South Dakota. So now, though, with their handling of the shipping and trucking, they might get a little more out of this 315 that's available to them. But
Follow up. So is there another USDA grant that they're getting additional monies for food?
I don't know the answer to that. Mr. Chair, to administer the TFAP program, basically the costs of administration gives us access to the USDA Foods entitlement that we talked about earlier. And so, the food purchases for this particular program are in the entitlement, and then the admin costs are separate, and whatever above and beyond that we can't reimburse is up to Feeding South Dakota. I don't know the answer to that.
Representative Mucky.
For the purposes of our time, and thank you, gentlemen, for the conversation, I think it's important for me to state to the committee what I will intend to do with this. So we have a motion sheet on the table. When we move forward with that motion sheet, given this conversation where we're moving, I will withdraw that motion sheet because the conversation has shifted dramatically. At the same time, I think there's also opportunities for us to discuss this in the letter of intent process. So that is where I will address my concerns. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Representative Mucky. Representative Jorgensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just further clarification, my understanding is with the entitlement, we have like 600,000 to 1.4 million that go for actually getting the food. Did I understand that correctly? Above the administrative costs?
Mr. Chair? Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have one more question. We requested I would like, the last piece of the puzzle for me is the actual contract or agreement between Department of Education and USDA.
Mr. Chair,
Like the actual.
I forwarded those two grant award documents last night to your LRC staff.
I did receive those, but.
So those are the grant awards, and then we can forward the actual state plan to you to get those.
Yeah, I need the agreement.
Okay, we have a state plan that we can forward to you.
The state plan is what you sign and USDA signs?
Yes, sir.
It's got all the details.
Yeah, we'll get that to you.
Okay, thank you. And is there anyone from Feeding South Dakota that would like to add a little color or clarification at this time? We are going to meet again later this afternoon. We've got about 2 minutes if you do, about 2 minutes. Good morning, welcome.
Good morning, Lori Dykstra, CEO of Feeding South Dakota. I just have one clarification, Mr. Chair, that we do manage all the subrecipients of the contract today, so that would be under our responsibility. And I don't know if there's any further questions for me.
I follow up. So we were under the impression you were the only subrecipient. Do you manage some other subrecipients under you?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. We have, so we're the main contract with the state, and then we have partners. So our pantries in the small town communities that are TFAP enabled, we deliver that food directly to them. So we have to also ensure they follow all the same rules that are this program.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good.
Meeting the.
Representative Jorgensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, so if you have these subgroups that you're delivering food to, do you pass any of the administrative dollars along to them as well, or?
Sorry, Mr. Chair. No, we do not today. We deliver it, we package it, we put it into boxes, we do all of the labor. They just hand it out. But we do pass through dollars, but not from this program, to our pantries. Thanks.
Representative Mucky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to clarify as well, so I think I had some confusion when we were having this conversation about food ordering. Are you ordering the food?
Mr. Chair, we do not order the food. We work with the state and they order the food.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you. All right, moving on. Appreciate that. We're just going to go down the list. The next budget setting is for the Department of Labor and Regulation. All right, staff.
Mr. Chair, Drew Kuypers, LRC staff. For the Department of Labor and Regulation, we have some provider inflation, budget transfers for the new state apprenticeship agency, passed in Senate Bill 63. Some alternative motions for the cancellation of the state digital equity capacity grant. Unutilized authority cuts, budget transfers and reemployment assistance. Then funding for a new financial institution examiner and adjustments to insurance payments.
Okay, let's start at the top. We'll take each of these individually and ask the sponsor of the motion sheet. Okay, I see my name up there. Explain that.
Yep. So that is going to be for the necessary funding for the state apprenticeship agency. The request here is different than the agency's original budget request, and I think that they would be able to better explain how they'll be moving money, especially within Secretariat Division.
Okay, is that something we need to take action on? Or where are we at? We're on A8? A5. Well, anywhere there's my name, let's cover it, because, okay. Okay, we'll have BFM, all right, to explain this. Or the agency. We're just going to go down these one at a time and.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'm Emily Ward from the Department of Labor and Regulation. I'm the finance officer for the department.
Okay, can you explain, you want to start at A8? Okay, A8, apprenticeship budget transfer.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Emily Ward. What A8 is doing is it's establishing, if you remember when we did our state apprenticeship agency budget request, we had originally talked about needing to move existing budget in order to accommodate some of the workload. We're going to be using our future fund grant in order to do that. This is giving us adjusting our budget in our department to do that. What we're also doing here is right now we have our apprenticeship agency budget split up into 2 budget units, and we're going to combine it into 1 budget unit so it's all in 1 spot instead of 2 spots.
Okay, very good. Any questions? Representative Jorgensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So is this related to our Senate Bill 63 that was passed recently? So this is all related to that?
Mr. Chair, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I understand A4 and A5. I think I understand that neither one of those are going to be checked because A8 is what you guys are ultimately looking for. But my question is, why are we going from 3 to 4 FTEs?
Mr. Chair, I think if you look at the sheet, you're only seeing 1 budget center, which is 1001. If you scroll down to 1005, that is where we're moving that FTE, so it's a net to 0. It's the thing is like we're trying to accomplish 2 things in here. We have just our budget transfer, which is that 4 FTE, trying to just move that into the 1 budget unit. And then you've got the adjustment of the 3 FTE, which is also, you see we're doing a decrease in our federal fund authority and increasing our other fund authority. If you combine those lines together, you would see that that's what we're trying to do there.
Okay, very good. Additional questions? Okay, I think we need a motion on A8, correct? I'd entertain a motion on A8. Representative Mucky, second by Senator Foster. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none. Secretary? Secretary, call the roll.
Senators and Representatives, Ms. Gimmons. Aye. Auk.
No.
Casson. Aye. Moore. Aye. Vilhauer. Aye. Carly.
No.
Boyda. No. Jorgensen. Aye. Howard. Nay. Foster. Aye. Sharda.
Aye.
Mucky.
Aye.
Zickman. Aye. Colbeck.
Aye.
Norstrup.
Aye.
Lapke.
Aye.
Otten. Derby.
Aye.
14 yeas, 4 nays.
Thank you. The motion A8 hereby passes. We have 3 more of these correct? Okay. What's the next one? A5. Okay. Entertain a motion on A5. I do have a question. So, no. Okay. All good. A5. Entertain a motion on A5. Representative Mucky. Second by Representative Colbeck. Discussion on the motion? Yes, Senator Carly.
Yeah, I'll just point out the governor recommended a 0 on this, so that's it.
Any further discussion? Yep, clarification. Representative Jorgensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just trying to figure out, so what's the difference between the one that we just did? What's the difference between these 2?
Okay,
Does anyone know?
yep. That's a question for the department or BFM.
Mr. Chair, I think your A8 was just that consolidation of our budget for apprenticeship program, state apprenticeship agency being in one budget unit. I think this one here is the moving from federal fund expenditure authority to other fund expenditure authority. Also consolidating that into one budget unit for the state apprenticeship agency.
Senator Howard.
At the end of, thank you, Mr. Chair. At the end of the day, though,
Yeah,
is the reality that we will have 7 individuals working in the apprenticeship program? Or more?
Mr. Chair, we will have 7 individuals working for the state apprenticeship agency functions. There's also some staff that will be working on kind of the workforce development side, still working on our initiatives like the teacher apprenticeship program, our development and expansion contracts, things like that. The other functions that the Future Fund has been funding and is going to continue with the current grant. Which is the way it is today.
Mr. Chairman, can I offer a
Commissioner?
comment?
Yes.
So on A5, I would actually like this clarified myself. My understanding is A5 is a net to zero. There's zero impact because you have an increase in one budget unit and a decrease in another budget unit. Is that correct? Okay, so A5, I think it's a little misleading because it looks like we're increasing 3 FTE and 455,000 in authority, and that's not the case. We're taking it out of one budget unit and moving it to another, so it's a net to zero on the budget. So I think that's very important because when you just look at A5, it looks like there's an increase in the budget. That is not the case.
Representative Jorgen.
Yeah, further clarification then, so typically, wouldn't you put that in parentheses then if you were taking something out and then moving it somewhere else? Am I reading this incorrectly?
I think it's in C2.
It's in.
C2.
Clarification from
Thank you.
LRC.
Yeah, the parentheses represents a negative, and that's in C2. So we'll subtract 3 from job services and then add 3 to secretariat.
Yep, Representative Jorgensen.
Okay, thank you. So basically what we're doing, I can see now where we're moving it. So it's not, we're not adding, we're just moving it. Okay, thank you.
Senator Howard.
So, yeah, so basically both of those canceled out later on in C2 and C3. However, we passed the bill earlier creating the apprenticeship program. So I guess my question for DLR is, prior to passing that bill, we still, and the feds were essentially in charge of the apprenticeship program. We still had 7 individuals at the state level working that, and we're still going to have 7 individuals?
Mr. Chair, we are reassigning duties of 4 of those individuals, and then we'll have 3 individuals that are going to be working on this as well.
Okay, so what are you doing with 4 individuals? Reassigning them to where?
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Marcia Holtman, Secretary of the Department of Labor and Regulation. We currently have, yes, 7 individuals working on the apprenticeship program. They will be reassigned and continue to work on the apprenticeship program. Their duties will just look slightly different under the new format because we will be assuming the responsibilities that the feds had previously. So they will be continuing to work on apprenticeships, but they'll have those additional responsibilities.
Okay. Any further questions? Let's see here. Any further discussion or questions? All right. Secretary, call the roll.
Ms. Gimmons.
Aye.
Auk.
No.
Casson. Moore. Gilhauer. Carly.
No.
Voida. Jorgensen.
No.
Howard. Foster.
Aye.
Sharda.
Aye.
Bucky.
Aye.
Zickmund.
Aye.
Colbeck.
Aye.
Norstrup.
Aye.
Lackey.
Aye.
Otten. Derby.
Aye.
13 yeas, 5 nays.
Okay, the motion sheet for A5 hereby passes. Next.
I believe I have A7, Mr. Chair.
Okay, explain that, please.
Yep.
LRC, we're doing what now?
What would you like?
No, tell them what you just said, Mr. K. Force.
Since you passed A5 and A8, the other half of those transfers would be in C2 and C3, and you could make one motion to do both of them at once if you'd like.
Okay. Representative Mucky.
I move C2 and C3.
Second by Representative Colbeck. Discussion on the motion? Yes, Senator Voida.
I just want to point out why I voted no on these, and this is something that kind of came to light after talking more about that bill, about the apprenticeship agency. Yes, we have a future fund grant right now, but looking down the road, we're probably going to be looking for general funds or some other revenue stream for this, so that's why I oppose those, but yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Yes, Senator Carley.
Yeah, I'll just point out too that apprenticeships exist across the state in a free market capacity now. And I know many businesses who have apprenticeships, so that's also why I was opposed to it. Both on the floor with 63 that didn't pass. It did pass, but there were a lot of no votes on that. And again, on the budget side of things, again, I think this should be left to the free market. So I'll be a no.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? Representative Jorgensen.
Thank you. And I was reminded that I actually voted no on the apprenticeship program as well, because I also believe that we have programs already in place. So, thank you.
Okay, all right, any further discussion? All right.
Ms.
Secretary, call the roll.
Ms. Gibbons.
Aye.
Auk.
No.
Casson. Moore.
Aye.
Vilhauer. Carly.
No.
Voida. Jorgensen. Howard. Foster.
Aye.
Sharda.
Aye.
Mucky.
Aye.
Dickmond. Colbeck.
Aye.
Norstrup.
Aye.
Lapke.
Aye.
Otten. Derby.
Aye.
13 yeas, 5 nays.
Okay. Motion sheets for C2 and C3 hereby pass. Okay, next.
Mr. Chair, I have A7.
Okay, next one is A7. Senator Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in '25, DLR received a 5-year grant, the Digital Equity Capacity Grant. They requested and received the appropriation in '25. The Trump administration canceled the program in May of '25, so DLR no longer needs the federal fund authority for this grant or the FTE for the canceled program. The governor did request a decrease, but just not of all of it. So this motion sheet is essentially saying the entire grant is gone. We are no longer implementing this program. So again, for transparency in the budgeting process, honesty with the taxpayers, I would say we need to remove all the federal fund authority and the FTE that was appropriated for this program. DLR does want to repurpose that and use it for a new internal control officer position. However, they did revert $6.8 million in federal fund authority, which was 19% of their federal fund authority. So they don't need to hang on to the federal fund authority for this grant because they already are reverting other federal fund authorities. So I would just, for the sake of, you know, again, when we take in, whether it's general fund dollars or federal fund authority, when a program goes away, everything associated with that program should go away as well.
Okay, would comment from the department or BFM?
Mr. Chair, Emily Ward from Department of Labor and Regulation. We would request to keep the FTE and the associated expenditure authority for that to pay the salaries and benefits for that internal control officer position, that we were repurposing that small portion of the budget and the FTE for. About the same time that that grant was canceled, we determined that the additional workload that is coming for internal control functions in the department was increasing. We needed staff in order to do that. So that's why we repurposed that FTE to do it. When it comes to our reversion of expenditure authority in the department, that's mostly in operating expenses. In this budget unit last year, where the expenses for this FTE is going, we didn't revert hardly any federal fund expenditure authority in that unit. So just asking that we still have some budget to pay that staff and not, go against overutilizing FTE in the department so that we can complete those functions.
Representative Jorgensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, so the grant was canceled, and I see, so this would be a remaining $97,753. So where's the money coming from? Because if the grant's canceled, I mean, there's still federal authority, but federal authority doesn't mean you have money, and the grant's been canceled. So where's that money coming for that 97,000 plus?
Mr. Chair. That position's being funded with our indirect cost fund, and our indirect cost fund is funded with portions of all of our grants and funds in our department. We use that similar for some of our other positions that benefit the whole department, like our administrative staff, our finance staff, our communication staff.
Follow-up.
Follow-up. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So are those federal dollars, other grant monies that have been shifted, or are there any general funds? I mean, it looks like there isn't based on looking at my chart here, but where are the funds? I know you're saying it's your indirect cost fund, but is that coming from a different federal grant? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may, our indirect cost fund is charged to each and every unit within the department. So some of it is federal funds and some of it is other funds. So.
But when it comes to spending it, it all shows up as federal expenses because that's how that fund is categorized on this chart of accounts for the state.
Senator Carly.
So, question, why not, if this program ends, revert that, all the authority for the amount, just so it's a 1-to-1 ratio, so it's very clean. We see the program's gone, you revert those funds, then you ask for a separate line item for keeping this additional FTE and what the duties and responsibilities are. Why not just do it clean like that instead of absorb some of that money in that?
Mr. Chair, I mean, we can do that if you want to also add the FTE into this motion sheet for the internal control officer. I think our department has to make staffing decisions all the time, and when it comes to like everything that's involved in the budget, we were trying to just make this, I think, simple for everybody, but we can do that too.
Yeah, I just recommend that as a general practice, just to be clean, very transparent. Program ended, those monies revert, and then you know what? Maybe next year you come and you say, "Hey, we need this additional position. Here's what it is. It's for something entirely different." And I would try to advise making that a general practice of keeping that clean. And I think it's actually simpler to show it that way as well. So just an advice.
Senator Howard.
Mr. Chair, and I would agree with that comment, although I would still assert that all they would need to do is ask for an FTE for the eliminate everything from the grant. But coming back, all they need to ask for is an additional FTE for an internal control officer, because as has been pointed out, they want to hang on to this federal fund authority, but the dollars are coming from other funds and federal funds that we've already given them authority for. So they already have authority for the dollars that they're going to use. They don't need additional authority to use dollars that they're pulling from this other authority. So that would be my recommendation.
Okay, any other questions? Representative Mucky.
Just a clarifying question. We're talking about the FTE in this case. Are we talking, is that an FTE that's tied to your federal authority? Is that just an FTE in general?
We're paying this with federal funds, with our indirect cost fund, it's being paid, it's kind of associated with the federal.
Okay, I have a question for Commissioner Terwilliger. Good morning, Commissioner.
Morning.
Please identify yourself.
Jim Terwilliger, Bureau of Finance and Management.
So, to follow up on Senator Carly, is there a simple way, I saw some head nodding, maybe not.
Sure.
Is there a simple way to get rid of the authority, but keep the one FT? Do you just change that on there from red to one? I don't know. Tell me.
Well, the motion sheets and all that, that's nothing that we handle. That would probably be a question for your LRC staff. But, I mean, we'd certainly be open to Senator Carly's suggestion. So eliminating the FTE and the federal fund authority, and then have a separate motion sheet for an increase in the FTE and the corresponding, I don't know how much authority that is. About $100,000 for that internal control FTE. I think that would be a clean way to do that, but you'd probably have to have another motion sheet to provide that funding for the internal control FTE.
Right, okay. Understood. Representative Casson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. You know, I kind of struggle with this in the aspect of this is a person, and if we're going to go down the path of just start singling out, if I'm this person, I know I work for the state. I know they work for the state government. I get this, but are we? Is the process this way to try and say, hey, this is what we're going to do, so that we don't kind of specifically point out and pinpoint one person and their job is on the chopping block? Because I mean, at some point there is some humanity in this, as far as like, hey, by the way, we're all of a sudden we're just going to pinpoint this person and this person, this person and this person, and all of a sudden we're going to just vote up and down on their jobs. And so I understand what we're trying to do here. There's also a humanity piece of this. Of this is somebody's job.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you for those comments, Representative Casson. I mean, I think that's the ultimate question is how far down this path do we go, and how much granular detail do we go down this path? I mean, do we want to start having motion sheets for, a few $1,000s for every piece of travel budget? How long do we want to be up here managing this process? I mean, I think that's the ultimate question. I understand where you're coming from, Senator Carly. Honestly, I mean, related to some of the discussions we had yesterday, I'd have probably handled that differently if I could rewind some time. But we're at where we're at right now. I think ultimately you have to decide, how granular you want to manage these situations that come up. From our perspective, an FTE is a budget measure, but an internal control position is critically important. We had a huge discussion about internal controls last year and the value of those. And so my charge sometimes to state agencies is, hey, we're not gonna go ask for a whole bunch of new FTE in certain areas. Let's see if we can figure it out within existing budget. And that's what Emily and Secretary Holtman have done in this case, is try to figure it out within existing resources and not come to the legislature and ask for increases in FTE and XYZ, because then those are challenging conversations to have as well.
Okay, Representative Jorgensen, then Senator Howard.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. We just had a work group with all these unutilized FTEs and federal authority. And so I mean, there were hundreds and hundreds of them. So I understand what you're saying. Okay, first of all, my first question, have you hired for this position?
Mr. Chair, yes.
Okay, that's my first question. My second question is, do you have unutilized FTEs that you can utilize with federal authority right now on the books?
Mr. Chair, today, right now, at this moment, like, we're always looking at our FTE, our positions. Things change. We think that we're gonna get more grant funds for certain programs next year. It might not be the case, so at the end of the year, there might be FTE that go unutilized. I know we've got some positions here in Pierre that we've been trying to fill all year. I wouldn't say that's an unutilized FTE because we intend to fill it. We're trying.
Okay.
But we just, it takes time. Sometimes, you know, we gotta wait till we get the right individual and not just a warm body into those positions. So, when this grant was canceled, that kind of became an unutilized FTE because that position was eliminated. That person was unfortunately laid off. For our department, I think if you looked at our budget for the past 5 years, when we've had unutilized FTE, we've brought it to you guys and cut dozens of FTE from our budget that we weren't able to fund anymore. So we try really hard to make sure that we don't have a bunch of unutilized FTE in our department. And in this particular budget unit, you would see we're fully utilizing the FTE that we have there. So I can't speak for other departments certainly, but I know for our department, we've tried really hard to manage our FTE utilization so you guys don't see a whole bunch of unutilized FTE in our department.
Follow up.
All right, thank you, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate your answer, and I appreciate how difficult this process is. I also understand that we're trying to right-size our budget, trying to make sure that we're very transparent for the public, and to Senator Howard's credit, I believe that's what she's trying to do here too, is just to be super responsible. Well, we all want to be responsible for the taxpayers' dollars, as do you, as do you. So thank you for that answer, I appreciate that.
Senator Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I want to reiterate, and maybe, I want to make sure everyone understands. There's no federal grant tied to this federal fund authority. There's no specific dollars tied to this authority. They will pull dollars from other areas that they've already received authority for. So they do not need this additional authority. They're using their indirect costs, which are federal funds and other funds. So what should have happened, they should have come and asked us for an FTE, and that's it, because they're pulling from other sources that they already have. They already have that authority. They already have the money, apparently. So I would just reiterate that again. There is no grant tied to these federal dollars, the authority that they want to hold on to. We need to eliminate this. The program has been eliminated. Eliminate everything with the program. They can request an FTE, but we don't need to give them any additional authority. They already have the authority. They said that's where they're pulling the dollars from to pay for this person.
Mr. Chair, I would just add, respond to that as part of, separate from this conversation, I think every agency participated in good faith on the unutilized FTE and authority adjustment. So I believe A9 is part of that, where you're already lopping off $1 million of federal authority. And so we came to the table in terms of excess authority and FTE. I think that was all part of the analysis of where everything was at. And so I would argue that this would kind of be doubling up on that from my perspective.
Representative Norstrup.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we've identified the problem. The problem is when you're trying to put two things into one motion, and the first part of the motion is, or the first issue is something is going away, and then it's just kind of blending back into the department with another. So my question is as we go through today and if it goes into tomorrow, are we gonna be running into that same issue again and again, or?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure. I know we had an issue yesterday and then this one today. I don't know if there's, I don't know. I haven't looked at all the individual motion sheets. To my knowledge, these might be the only two instances.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, follow up.
I guess the question I would ask is to you, Mr. Chair, if it'd be appropriate for the executive branch to take a look at some of their motions and try to take the two things happening in one motion and put it into two. It is too late in the process to make that adjustment?
Well, to answer your question, you're talking about the FTE issue and the authority issue. That's what you're calling two issues.
I'm talking, what I think we've identified is when a department goes away and some more unrelated projects come into play, and we put those into one motion, and that's the bump in the road we've seen twice. And I'm trying to avoid us seeing that again and again, and if there's a way to avoid that, I'm trying to ask that question.
Mr. Chairman, I'm tracking with your representative. If you're open to it, we can certainly put together a separate motion sheet if the committee be open to considering that on this instance and the one that we talked about yesterday, to consider that.
Follow up?
And actually, we've actually done that already on Danar, so that's already a done deal. So there's no need to go back on that, but just trying to avoid future bumps in the road if we can.
Mr. Chairman, I get your message loud and clear. In future budget cycles, we will duly note this to make sure that we're handling it appropriately.
Okay, Representative Auk.
Thank you. So, just so I'm clear, the grant, the $964,753 grant is going away. You're gonna keep the FTE and you're already funding it, correct? So, if we just went ahead with voting on A7, it sounds like they've already absorbed that $103,000 in their budget. I mean, I know we want to keep it clean. Do we need to have a motion sheet for the $103,000 for an FTE and a different budget number? Is that what we're looking at?
Mr. Chair, I think in full transparency, I think seems like that's the desire of the committee, is to have a separate motion sheet for the FTE and related federal authority to consider that separately in the spirit of transparency.
Okay, so just to clarify on my behalf, simply having the sponsor amend this motion sheet to remove taking away the FTE doesn't solve the whole issue. It addresses the authority, but we still haven't solved the FTE issue. Is that correct? Or would that solve it? Simply changing that from removing an FTE to zero?
Mr.
While
Chair,
it's in front of us here.
I think A6 and A7 are essentially trying to do the same thing, which is remove the expenditure authority from that particular grant. The governor's one, A6, let us keep that FTE and expenditure authority for the internal control officer. A7 would be removing the FTE and budget for that. So A6 would just let us keep that FTE and be done and take away the rest of the expenditure authority related to that grant. If you did A7, I would ask that you then do another motion to give me an FTE and expenditure authority, federal fund expenditure authority for salaries and benefits for that particular position.
Okay, that's helpful. I was just drilled in on A7, so I didn't know the correlation. Representative Cass and then Senator Howard.
No, I was just going to say that I think the motion sheets that you're looking for are up there. A6 does exactly what Representative Norstrup is saying, where there's the AFTE and this. A7 does what Senator Howard's talking about. So they're already there.
Okay. Senator Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I would continue to argue that they do not need the federal fund authority even if we give them the 1 FTE for the internal control position, and even though we are right-sizing their other federal fund authority, because they had to have hung on to the necessary federal fund authority attached to the dollars to pay for this position. They had to have, if they intend to pay this person, so.
A question for, oh, I'm sorry, answer that.
Mr. Chair, what I would say is that we need that federal fund authority in the personal services budget to pay staff, not operating expense budget. And so I think like looking at A9, that's removing expenditure authority from our operating expense budget. So at the end of the day, I need to be able to have that personal services budget to fund that position.
Okay, further questions? Any further discussion? Okay, I think we're at that point where we'll entertain a motion on A7. Senator Howard.
I would move motion sheet A7.
Second by Senator Voida. Discussion on the motion.
There's been plenty already.
Very good. Okay. We have a motion and a second. Secretary, call the roll.
Ms. Gimmons.
Nay.
Auk.
Aye.
Casson. Moore.
No.
Billhauer. Carly.
Aye.
Voida. Jorgensen. Howard. Foster. Sharda.
Aye.
Mucky.
No.
Zickmund. Colbeck.
No.
Norstrup.
No.
Lapke.
Aye.
Derby. Or, my bad, sorry. Foster. No. Otten.
No.
And Derby.
No.
7 yeas, 11 nays.
Okay, motion on A7 fails. Okay, next one.
Provider inflation.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Staff, what's the next one?
We're going into provider.
Inflation.
Yep,
Okay, hang on a second.
yep.
My-
Senator Otten.
Mr. Chair, A3, I think that is one of the more stellar motion sheets out there, but I will not be moving it at this time.
Okay, we are on A2, correct?
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
If
Representative Cassidy.
if we've kind of decided on 1-4 as a discretionary provider inflation, wouldn't it be maybe easier if we just marked this and move forward every time?
Yes. We do have a recommendation, correct?
I do.
Are we at that point in time? All right, please.
Mr. Chair, I recommend we approve line items A2, A9, and the remainder of the governor's recommended budget for the Department of Labor and Regulation.
And Representative Norstrup.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would move to set the budgets for administration, secretary of labor, reemployment assistance, job services, state labor law administration, board of accountancy, informational board of barber examiners, informational cosmetology commission, informational plumbing commission, informational board of technical professions, informational Electrical Commission, Informational Real Estate Commission, Informational Abstractors, Board of Examiners, Informational South Dakota Athletic Commission, Informational Banking, Trust Captive Insurance Company, Informational Insurance at the level detailed in the Department of Labor and Regulations motion sheet, which includes $3,794,250 in general funds, $33,931,000, $305 in federal fund expenditure authority, $23,433,731 in other funds expenditure authority, and 406.7 FTEs.
Motion by Representative Norstrup, second by Representative Mucky. Discussion on the motion? Yes, Senator Carly.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be voting no on this because I think we are dishonestly voting for something that had a $960,000 reduction from federal funds, but we're not voting on including that, so I'll be no on this.
Representative Norstrup.
I would just ask the members of the committee to choose their words more carefully. Thank you.
Further discussion on the motion. Secretary, call the roll.
Ms. Gimmons. Aye. Auk.
Aye.
Casson. Aye. Moore. Aye. Gilhauer. Aye. Carly.
Nope.
Boyda. No. Jorgensen. Aye. Howard. Aye. Foster.
Aye.
Sharda.
Aye.
Mucky.
Aye.
Zickman. Aye. Colbeck.
Aye.
Norstrup.
Aye.
Lapke.
Aye.
Otten.
Aye.
Derby.
Aye.
15 yeas, 3 nays.
Motion to set the budget for the Department of Labor and Regulations hereby passes. Okay, thank you. And moving on to the Department of Corrections.
Mr. Chair, Joey Konopchinsky, LRC Fiscal. Considering where we're at, I'll be brief with the Department of Corrections. What you have is a series of recommendations from the governor and changes with respect to 1.4% in discretionary provider inflation and 2 changes with respect to removing unutilized authority and FTEs.
Recommendation?
Mr. Chair, I recommend we approve the governor's recommended budget and line items C5, G2, G8, and I2 for the Department of Corrections.
Representative Norstrup.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would move to set the budgets for administration, Mike Durkee, State Prison, State Penitentiary, Women's Prison, Pheasant Land Industries, Rapid City Correctional Facilities, Inmate Services, Parole Services, Juvenile Community Corrections at the level detailed in the Department of Corrections motion sheet, which includes $171,168,419 in general fund, $2,984,210 in federal fund expenditure authority, $5,304,138 in other funds expenditure authority, and 1,067.6 FTEs.
Motion by Representative Norstrup, seconded by Representative Mucky. Discussion on the motion. Seeing no discussion, Secretary, call the roll.
Ms. Gimmons. Aye. Auk.
Aye.
Casson. Moore. Aye. Billhauer. Aye. Carly.
Aye.
Boyda. Aye. Jorgensen. Aye. Howard. Aye. Foster. Aye. Sharda.
Aye.
Mucky.
Aye.
Zickman. Aye. Colbeck.
Aye.
Norstrup.
Aye.
Lapke.
Aye.
Otten.
Aye.
Derby.
Aye.
15 yeas.
motion to hereby set the budget for the Department of Corrections hereby passes. Okay, moving on to the Unified Judicial System.
Mr. Chair, Joey Konopchinsky, LRC Fiscal. We went over this last night. So, again, there are a few motion sheets included here, one of which is 1.4% discretionary provider inflation, one of which is for the Alternative Care Grant Program, another is for unutilized FTE authority, and another is to reduce general funding for the Court Services Secretary in the Second Circuit.
Okay, thank you. So we do have, we'll start with the motion sheet for the Court Services Secretary. Which one is that? Do you have it? B2. Senator Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am not going to move that motion sheet. However, I do want to encourage UJS because, in a sense, they are doing what we want them to do. They're coming and asking for an FTE and the funding to go with it. However, at the same time, for the last 10 years, they have been reverting between 1.5 to 2 million in general funds. So I would highly encourage them to look at that and are there FTEs, are there positions that they need to eliminate because obviously something needs to change there. They shouldn't be reverting that much. But I appreciate the honesty, so I don't want to discourage that. But at the same time, I would just encourage the UJS to go back and look at that and see if we could right-size those general funds at all.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Norstrup.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Let's see.
I would make a motion to accept B11, which is a increase to the alternate care grant program for $365,000.
Motion by Representative Norstrup, seconded by Representative Mucky. Discussion on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There has been a clarification in state law by House Bill 1140 that makes it very, it is not a change in law, it is a clarification of law. It makes it very clear to the judicial system that the alternate care grant program is a option for the judges. There's currently 3 that are very clear today, and this adds the 4th clarification so that the judges know that sending somebody, or giving a person a choice of attending the alternate care grant system would be one of their very acceptable options coming from the legislature.
Additional discussion on the motion. Senator Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I would ask people to oppose this motion. I do not believe they need these funds at this time. If these beds are all filled, if they eventually do need these ongoing general fund dollars, which we just talked about how much they're reverting every year, if they do end up needing these dollars, which they do not need them right this minute, they don't need them right now. So I'm asking you to resist this motion. We can address this as they need the dollars.
Senator Voida.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I am supportive of this clarification in law that we're doing. I'm supportive of the program, but we just heard them testify that it was over $100,000, I think, that they were reverting from what's earmarked for that program. So until we actually get that ball rolling and need these funds, I'm going to have to resist this.
Additional discussion on the motion.
Mr. Chair.
Representative Norstrup.
This budget goes into effect July 1. The new policy goes into effect July 1. I believe there are 6,000 decisions. There's 6,000 situations where judges will be looking at the options. Out of those 6,000 decisions, in other words, there's going to be 6,000 people standing in front of a judge, and the judge is going to have to make a decision. Now, it's very clearly laid out in 1140 that the option exists of those 6,000 decisions. This projection says that of those 6,000, 20 of them are going to be given the option for alternate care. That is 1/3 of 1%. I can't imagine that we will be, so we really, that will happen. 20 decisions out of 6,000, and therefore, they will be given the opportunity to go to alternate care, which is Teen Challenge. When they get there, it's going to cost us $50 a day. If they don't go there, they may go to prison, which costs us $92 a day. If you can, and if you put a person in a jail cell, 2 years later, they're going to come out with more problems than they went in with. If you send them to a Teen Challenge for a year and a half, their recidivism rate is 14%. That is a fiscally conservative idea to buy something at half price that performs much better than something at double the price. With that, I would ask for the committee to, and if I'm wrong, which there's no doubt in my mind that I'm right, we will revert this money back. But what's going to happen if those beds if those beds fill up, and what I've projected isn't filling the beds, it's projecting we fill 2/3 of the beds. So we could come back with a budget problem on this side, because if the beds actually do fill up, which is not what we're projecting, but they're coming out of there's a probability that they're coming from prison. So we're going to have a savings elsewhere. But I guess my fear factor is this is a lifesaver for somebody. I can't imagine why we would not offer this opportunity and fill as many beds as possible. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, no one is saying this is not a good program. We're all saying this is a great program. Hopefully, a lot of individuals will be given this opportunity, but we sit in appropriations and we budget based on reality, based on facts, and the facts are this is not a need right this minute. We don't even know if this will be a need next year because they have already been reverting funds from this current program. And they have been reverting $1.5 to $2 million in general funds every year. So if by chance they run into a situation where they do need more general funds, they will have the funds to cover this until we can come back and address this and have more data, more numbers, more to attach to reality versus what ifs. So.
Any further discussion? Senator Miskimins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this relates to personal business. And sometimes you make an investment that you don't know whether it's going to work or not, but it's worth the effort, the risk to grow your business. This is an opportunity to invest in people at a lower cost, to give them one last chance to change their lives and to have a better future. I encourage your support.
Representative Jorgensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question. Can I get a question from, or an answer? I was just trying to figure out how much is being used for this program now. Like last year, what was it? And how much is in that fund? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Representative, so last year, the budget for the program is $333,334. And last year, the expenditures were $267,150.
Follow up? Thank you, Mr. Chair. So that's an ongoing, every year you're getting about $333,000, is that correct?
Mr. Chair, yes, that's correct.
So this would basically double it from what you're getting. And how many people used the program last year? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Aaron Olson with UJS. According to the annual report from Teen Challenge that is submitted to the legislature each year, they served 50 South Dakota men last year in their program.
Senator Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a question for them as well. You guys knew that this bill passed. Did you I mean, there was a deadline to get motion sheets in. UJS did not ask for a motion sheet, BFM did not ask for a motion sheet. Was there a reason for that? Because you knew the bill had passed.
Mr. Chair, Senator, when we put our budget request together to the governor's office, we weren't aware that 1140 was going to be offered this session, so we didn't plan for that for our budget.
Senator Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. But then when the bill passed, did you make a conscious decision not to request additional funds because you didn't feel you needed them at this time, or?
Mr. Chair, Senator, the motion sheet was out there before the bill passed, and so we didn't see any reason. We view this as a legislative decision to determine both the bill and the funding.
Okay, Representative Nordstrom.
The comment was made earlier that the number 50 was thrown out. There's a better explanation. The better explanation, and when you say 50, that means some people are coming and some people are going, and there isn't, but let me give you some facts. Currently, there are 54 beds in Brookings waiting for somebody to get what they need to turn their life around. 54 beds. It's currently funded at 18. The way you do the math is you take the 333,000 divided by 365 days, divided by a $50 per day fee. So we're currently funding 18 of those 54 beds. This amendment will fund 20. 365 days, do the math, it's 20 times, that's where the math comes from, 20 beds filled, 365 days times $50. So if we do this, we're going to fund a total, with last year's budget and this new addition, 38 beds. There will still be unfunded beds. And I have no doubt that we're going to need this money. And I don't know what happens if the money's not there, but the person that needs this help is there. Please vote yes.
Representative Jorgensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what's the average length of stay at Teen Challenge for individuals? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Representative, it's 14 months.
Follow-up? So for one individual, it's typically 14 months. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, yes, that's correct, 14 months per individual.
Thank you.
Representative Moore.
Yeah, just to complete the last question, what does happen if we run out of money before the end of the budget?
Mr. Chair, so the way we manage this is we put out an RFP every year to see who's going to be the recipient. That's what the statutes say. And so when we do that, we give them what the budget will be for the program. We've carried over excess. We've not had a year where we haven't had enough. And so I guess my thought would be, since we put the contract out and say, here are the terms, that we would probably follow that contract terms. I suppose we could look to amend that contract toward the end of the year if there was a need to add additional dollars in. But really what we do is every quarter we get the list of unique individuals, and those numbers change as people graduate or perhaps fail the program. And we reimburse them $50 every quarter for unique South Dakota residents, is how the program works.
Okay, Senator Carly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A question. So you said last year there was about $100,000 that you didn't use, left over in the budget that you didn't use for this program. Was that because there wasn't enough beds, or was that because you just didn't have enough candidates to go into those places?
Mr. Chair, that was because there were not enough candidates to pay out the $50 to get to the total amount of the $333.
Senator Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I do want to remind everyone that Teen Challenge is not an official agency of the state. They're not, we don't run Teen Challenge. It is a nonprofit. So to the question, when they run out of money, well, hopefully they're fundraising. Hopefully they're doing what nonprofits are supposed to do. I mean, unless we want to roll them up under UJS and make them a correctional facility and take over the complete funding of them, which, maybe we're headed down that road. that's a discussion maybe we should have. But at this point in time, they're not an official state agency. They're not under an official state agency. We simply have a contract to assist them with their funding purposes, so.
Further discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Representative Norstrup?
They've got an 86% success rate. If you multiply the number of days that they're there, which is 14 months, times the number of days in that time period, times $50, we can go from a disaster to fixed for $21,000. Or, if you don't like that plan, go to the current plan. The current plan is they go to prison, they go to probation, they go to parole. All of those things will cost money. And the failure rate within those three items are fairly high. $21,000 to get from a menace to society to somebody who's participating. I'll give you a personal story. At my business, a young man worked for me, and he was on methamphetamine, and we fired him. We had to. He was incompetent. He was terrible. He is currently managing, and he went to Teen Challenge. He's currently managing a lumber yard in Brookings, paying his taxes, going to church, doing the right thing. Thank you.
Representative Colbeck?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to support this, and I'm going to tell you the reason why. Number one, we have been talking about recidivism. We've been talking about mental health and a lot of different things and how to fund them and make people better once they get out of a correctional facility or maybe even get out of Team Challenge. As you all know, HB 1086, which was to put a program together to help people that got themselves in trouble and get them back out on the street in a good way. That 1086, that failed. And then we also passed 1140, which gives the judges the opportunity to impose a condition of probation or parole or certain circumstances for treatment at a nonprofit entity. And that passed, and as the good representative from Aberdeen said, that goes into effect July 1. And I'm hoping that on July 1, with this appropriation and the passage of 1140, that all 54 of those beds by July 31 might be filled with people that need that kind of help and that kind of service that we gave the judges the authority or the permission to do that with. And if we can fill all those beds and we can get those people back out on the street in 14 months and manage lumber yards, work in a automobile garage, go farming, whatever it might be, I think that our investment of this amount of money would be well worth what we want to do here today. So I recommend a yes vote. Thank you.
Any further discussion on B11? Senator Voida.
I just have to reiterate because I feel like we keep, I mean, this isn't the first appropriation that we've had this type of discussion on, but we keep talking about how we support something and we love the outcome of something, and yes, I do too. But we literally just heard they have the authority to do this right now. Yes, we're making a statement as a legislature encouraging this, but we just heard that they reverted money because they didn't have the candidates. And so I don't appreciate that we're framing this question of, do we think this appropriation is needed right now based on the fact of, do you like this program or not? That's not what the question is before us today. And so I'm just a little bit frustrated. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Representative Norstrup, do you want to respond to what Bill 1140 does and why we're talking about this?
Well, it's a sea change. It is absolutely a sea change in terms of the number of people that were sentenced, or not sentenced, they don't get sentenced to Teen Challenge. They're given the opportunity to go to Teen Challenge. If you read current law, it is nearly impossible to find any authority for a judge to do this. It's been agreed upon that they do have the authority, but it is very difficult to show a judge this is your authority because it's poorly written the way it is now. We make it well written And once we make it well-written, we will communicate to the judges of South Dakota that it is crisp and clear. Right now it's in bullets, right, or excuse me, right now it's in paragraphs. A little bit here, a little bit over there, got a reference back here. What Representative Hughes did was he put it in number 1 choice, number 2, number 3, and number 4, right there in law, and the judge will look down there and see exactly how crisp and clear it is that the authority exists. It's been a train wreck in the past getting people to Teen Challenge. That's why they've got between 10 to 20 beds filled, because that's why the reason for 1140 was to clarify what's already doable. And so the number of people that are going to be given the opportunity to go to Teen Challenge is going to skyrocket once this bill goes into effect, 1140 goes into effect. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second on B11. Secretary, call the roll.
Senators and Representatives, Ms. Gimmons. Auk.
Pass.
Casson. Yes. Moore. Billhauer. Carly.
No.
Boyda. Jorgensen. Howard. Foster. Sharda.
Aye.
Mucky.
Aye.
Zickmund. Colbeck.
Aye.
Norstrup.
Aye.
Lapke.
Aye.
Auk.
Aye.
Otten. Derby.
Aye.
14 yeas, 4 nays.
Motion sheet B11 hereby passes. Okay, we all have to get to the floor at 11 o'clock, and we'd probably be pushing it. Okay, we have a recommendation.
I do. Mr. Chair, I move we approve line items B6, B12, and the remainder of the governor's recommended budget for the unified judicial system.
Representative Norstrup.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to set the budgets for State Bar Association informational, unified judicial system, equal access to our courts, indigent legal services at the levels detailed in the unified judicial system motion sheet, which includes $67,518,196 in general funds, $346,249 in federal fund expenditure authority, $15,240,000, $77,1 in other fund expenditure authority, and 619.7 FTEs.
Okay, we have a motion. Second by Senator Miskimmons. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, Secretary, call the roll.
Ms. Gimmons.
Aye.
Auk.
Aye.
Casson. Moore.
Aye.
Billhauer. Carly.
Pass.
Boyda. Jorgensen. Howard. Foster. Sharda.
Aye.
Mucky.
Aye.
Zickmund. Colbeck.
Aye.
Norstrup.
Aye.
Lapke.
Aye.
Carly.
No.
Otten.
Aye.
Derby.
Aye.
16 yeas, 2 nays.
Motion to set the budget for the unified judicial system hereby passes. Okay, I've been assured we can do the next one in 1 minute, and then we give you 5 minutes to get to the floor. Department of Human Services.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Mitch Honan, LRC. Before you have the Department of Human Services. This includes the discretionary provider inflation. It includes the governor's recommended budget, and there is a right size of FTE and authority.
Senator Lapke.
Mr.
You have a
Chair.
recommendation.
I recommend we approve the governor's recommended budget and line items B2, D3, E3, G3, B7 for the Department of Human Services.
Representative Norstrop.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would move to set the budgets for administration, Secretary of Human Services, Developmental Disabilities, South Dakota Development Center in Redfield, long-term services and support, rehabilitation services, telecommunications devices for the deaf, service to the school, for the services to the blind and visually impaired at the levels detailed in the Department of Human Services motion sheet, which includes $348,704,866 in general funds, $413,398,653 in federal fund expenditure authority, $17,850,051 in other funds expenditure authority, and 557.9 FTEs.
Motion by Representative Norstrop, seconded by Representative Mucky. And discussion on the motion. Seeing no discussion, Secretary, call the roll.
Ms. Gimmons.
Aye.
Auk.
Aye.
Casson. Moore. Aye. Billhauer. Carly.
Aye.
Boyda. Jorgensen.
Aye.
Howard. Foster.
Aye.
Sharda.
Aye.
Mucky.
Aye.
Zickmund. Colbeck.
Aye.
Norstrup.
Aye.
Lackey.
Aye.
Otten. Derby. 18
Aye.
yeas.
Motion to set the budget for the Department of Human Services hereby passes. Okay, we will be at ease and recess until after the floor and caucus, and we'll send out a text when we think we're getting ready to get together again, but it'll be this afternoon. Any questions? All good? Yes, Representative Norstrop.
Mr. Chair, I believe there is a event down at the Capitol Center, down by the lake concerning nuclear energy. So just a heads up. I think it
Great,
starts
thank
at 11:45. Thank you.
We are at recess.
SDPB brings you closer to your government. With gavel-to-gavel coverage of the South Dakota legislature and in-depth reporting from Pierre. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. From early learners to lifelong students, SDPB inspires curiosity through trusted educational programs and resources for every stage of life. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB.